Really, this house is lovely. The sunlight is just perfect. Yeah, I can't wait to live here. Next to the smiling in-laws, my husband, Eric, is also nodding in satisfaction. We came to view our potential new home, but I hadn't expected it to be such a luxury property. As my in-laws and Eric carry on making decisions, my anxiety grows. Are we really going to buy this place? Seeing my confusion, the agent, Ms. Johnson, whispers to me, "Could you please come into this room? There's something about the contract we need to discuss." Led to another room, I was internally frightened. I thought I was going to be pressured into signing the contract. However, what Ms. Johnson said was completely unexpected. "Run away now." What? I was taken aback by her unexpected words and didn't understand what she meant. "Run away? What do you mean?" "I'm sorry for startling you all of a sudden, but I've seen something." Ms. Johnson started speaking in an uneasy manner. What she revealed was shocking. "My name is Melissa. I'm turning 32 this year. Eric is the same age. We don't have children yet but have been discussing buying our own home. I've always dreamed of a condominium, but Eric prefers a single-family house. It's for Eric's parents. His mother, Patricia, is 65. His father, Paul, is 66. They're relatively young for seniors. However, both in-laws are physically challenged. During a family trip when Eric was in high school, they were involved in a car accident. Fortunately, Eric was only slightly injured, but his parents suffered serious injuries. Though their lives weren't in danger, Patricia injured her back, and Paul can't move one of his legs properly. As a result, both had to quit their jobs. After graduating high school, Eric has worked hard, supporting his parents through everything. We met through mutual friends when we were 26. My first impression of Eric was that he was a serious, family-oriented person. He always seemed overly concerned about his parents. But once I knew the circumstances, I began to understand, and started to see him as a kind person. Our relationship naturally progressed, and eventually, we got married. Given this background, Eric wishes to buy a house where we can comfortably live with his parents. Since Eric is an only child and considering his parents' physical conditions, it seems like a natural decision. Yet, I've always felt something off about his parents. And my intuition wasn't wrong. Looking back, I felt this discomfort during our first family meeting 3 years ago. Nervously going to his parents' house, Patricia welcomed us. "Welcome, Melissa. It's a small house, but make yourself comfortable." "Thank you. I will." Seeing Patricia slowly bending and walking struck me hard. Even though I knew from Eric she had difficulty walking, it was still a shock. Paul also appeared. "Nice to meet you, Melissa." "Nice to meet you." Walking with a limp to protect his leg. The aftermath of the accident still affected them, making work difficult. But Eric said they were managing with insurance money. Seeing the in-laws, I was relieved I had bought sushi for lunch beforehand. Feeling sorry for them having to host us with their conditions, I had prepared it. Offering the sushi immediately, Patricia exclaimed with joy, "Sorry for the trouble." "Thank you. Let's eat right away." No sooner had she spoken than the in-laws began eating the sushi non-stop. Their fervor left me astonished. "Mom, you two starting without us? We're hungry too." Eric raised his voice. "Sorry, dear. It's been a while since we had such luxurious sushi. We just couldn't resist. We have food for you and Melissa, too." What Patricia brought out to the table was, surprisingly, canned food meant for emergencies. "Sorry, this is all we have. she said with a smile, with Paul also laughing. Mom, thanks. Eric spoke cheerfully, but noticing my stunned silence, he turned to me. Melissa! What's with that face? As I was unsure what to say. Right, we didn't have any drinks. Eric began to stand up. Here, I've poured some for everyone. Then, Paul came walking unsteadily with a tray holding glasses for everyone. Thanks, Dad. Paul, I'm sorry. Let me set them out. I was speechless as I took the tray from Paul. The glasses were in poor condition, some cracked. It was filled with water. I had just seen Paul filling them at the sink. Thank you. I could only mutter my thanks in a hoarse voice. In the end, the sushi we brought was almost entirely eaten by the in-laws. We had brought it to share with everyone. The two of them, holding the sushi case. Delicious, delicious. Continued eating at an incredible pace, making it difficult for me to partake. Eric was eating the canned side dishes as if it were normal. Well, I wanted the sushi for Patricia and the others, so it's okay. But the canned food was unexpected. Looking at the can I had in hand, I noticed it was nearing its expiration date. I pretended not to see it and quietly ate the side dish inside. I could hardly taste it. Seeing me silent, Patricia asked with concern. Did the simplicity of the meal upset you? No, not at all. Be honest. I heard from Eric that your family are well-known landowners. You must be used to much more lavish meals than we can provide. I'm sorry we can only offer such meager fare. At first, I thought they were being spiteful, but it seemed they were serious. I was even more lost for words. That's not. As I was flustered, Patricia looked at me weakly. Sorry. As you might have heard from Eric, we have our physical limitations, right? We can't really go to the grocery store much. I'm sorry we can't entertain you properly. That's true. It's frustrating to think if only our bodies moved better. Paul nodded repeatedly. Faced with such remarks, I was left speechless. It's enough. Thank you. Indeed, as the in-laws said, they must have done their best to entertain us, considering their physical limitations. Living without working might have led to a simpler life, so maybe canned food and tap water can't be helped. However, having bought enough sushi for everyone, only for them to quickly eat it all themselves. It didn't sit well with me, but Eric was laughing, not seeming to find it strange, so I felt it wasn't my place to say anything. With unresolved feelings, we decided to leave the in-laws' house. Later, the topic of our wedding came up. I had been looking forward to it, but Eric came to me with a serious face to apologize. Sorry. My parents don't have any money, so they can't help with the wedding costs. That's okay. I was planning to use my savings anyway, so don't worry about it. I cheerfully replied. I had told my parents they didn't need to contribute either. I thought if only my parents contributed, it might make the in-laws feel guilty. So, we had a simple ceremony. After some time, Patricia called. Since they couldn't help with the wedding, they wanted to send us home appliances as a wedding gift as a gesture. I tried to refuse, saying they didn't need to bother, but Patricia insisted on sending them. A few days later, several large boxes arrived at our home. I was surprised. Patricia and the others bought us so much. Grateful, I started to unwrap the tape. Inside were assortments of old home appliances. An old vacuum cleaner that wasn't sold in stores anymore, a microwave with peeling paint, and other used items that had clearly been in use for decades. I even found the cracked cups and dishes I had seen at the family meeting. Could all this have been from Patricia's house? No way. I was at a loss for words. Mom and Dad sending this is really nice. Eric seemed happy, prompting me to protest. Wait, Eric. Aren't these the appliances Patricia used at home? They're all damaged and in poor condition. This is too much. What are you saying? They're still usable, right? You should be grateful. I was dumbfounded by Eric's pleased expression. But since we received them, I had no choice but to thank them. Reluctantly, I called Patricia. Thank you for the appliances. Have they already arrived? That was quick. Those were things we've used for a long time. They're filled with love, so we couldn't bear to throw them away. Maybe you could use them? You'll need appliances as newlyweds, right? Patricia's cheerful speech only increased my unease. That's true, but some of them are damaged or don't work at all. We appreciate the thought, but we'll buy new ones. What a waste. Buying new ones. You could save money, right? Save money? We would have liked to buy you new ones if we could. But, we have our physical limitations. It's hard for us to go to the store, so giving you things from our home was all we could do. If they didn't have the money, they didn't need to send anything. Moreover, Patricia mentioned this to Eric, and I ended up being scolded by him. Melissa, you complained about the appliances to Mom? They went out of their way to send us stuff from their home for us. Don't waste their kindness. I didn't mean to. It made me seem like the bad one. Reluctantly, I ended up using the damaged appliances. It's such a shame for newlyweds. I couldn't help but feel dissatisfied. However, I had to swallow my feelings, convincing myself they did what they could, given their financial situation. Then, Eric suggested we buy a home. Of course, I've always dreamed of owning our home. It should have been happy news. According to Eric, he wanted to buy a house that could accommodate living with his parents in the future. I was hesitant. Though I wanted to get along, the behavior of the in-laws to date left me feeling unsettled. I started wondering if living together was really a good idea. The sending of damaged appliances showed they disliked spending money. Initially, I thought they were trying to help in their way, but that started to seem dubious. Especially when I visited their house for some reason later and found all the appliances had been replaced with new ones. This raised questions in my mind. Weren't they supposed to be short on money? They had said they couldn't go to stores because of their mobility issues. But on reflection, these days, one can buy products online without needing to go to a store. It made me think they just wanted to get rid of their old, unwanted appliances under the guise of a wedding gift. I couldn't say this to Eric, though. Anyway, I was worried that living together would force us into a frugal lifestyle. Besides, knowing the in-laws, a new construction seemed unlikely. I feared they would push for an old, damaged property just because it was cheap. Despite my worries, surprisingly, the in-laws were interested in a solid house. Or rather, they already had a rough idea of the property. It seems you've already made quite a bit of progress. Confused, Eric responded as if it were obvious. I took Mom and them to see some houses on my day off. There's this really nice new house they liked. You didn't tell me about this. I felt left out and upset. They were making decisions about our future home without me. Feeling unsatisfied, I decided to go see the property myself. Eric, the in-laws, and I visited the real estate company. Then the person in charge came right away. Soon, a young, cute woman approached us. Her business card read Johnson. Nice to meet you. My name is Johnson, and I'll be assisting you. Ms. Johnson greeted us politely. She took us out in her car to view the property. In the car, the in-laws were chatting amiably with Ms. Johnson. It appears the new construction is in a high-end area. I had a bad feeling about this. After a while, we arrived at the property. It was a detached house with a large garden, looking quite luxurious. Such a grand house must be expensive. We went inside and checked the layout in the living room. The in-laws were engrossed in a cheerful chat. Really, this house is lovely. The sunlight is just perfect. Yeah, I can't wait to live here. Feeling anxious as the conversation progressed, I couldn't help but interject. Excuse me. This is my first time here, but... Oh, right. My apologies. Here is the brochure. I was surprised when I saw the brochure for the property. The asking price was clearly over our budget. Surely, this house wasn't suitable for us. Yet, the in-laws and Eric acted as if this property was meant for them. Sweating nervously and confused, I caught Ms. Johnson's intense gaze. She seemed like she wanted to say something. While glancing at the brochure, I pondered what to do. Eventually, the in-laws wandered off towards the terrace. Eric moved to assist them. They seemed absorbed in their conversation. Then, Ms. Johnson looked at me with determination and whispered, "Could you please come to this room? There's something about the contract we need to discuss." Surprised by Ms. Johnson's serious expression, I nodded instinctively. Led to another room, I was internally frightened. Was I going to be pressured to sign something immediately? However, what Ms. Johnson said next was entirely unexpected. "Run away now!" What? Taken aback by her unexpected words, I didn't understand what she meant. Run away? What do you mean? I'm sorry for startling you suddenly, but I've seen something. Ms. Johnson began speaking in an unsettled manner. Eric and the in-laws had been visiting this property before. According to Ms. Johnson, during those visits, the in-laws were walking without canes or assistance. What? What do you mean? But my in-laws are supposed to be physically limited. I couldn't believe it. The in-laws I had always seen struggle to walk. They were supposedly unable to work or go to the grocery store because of it. Could it be? I managed to mutter something. Do you want to see for yourself? Peeking through a slight opening Ms. Johnson made in the door, I surreptitiously watched the three of them. Indeed, the in-laws were walking. Of course, without any canes or assistance. Why? Could they walk normally all this time, pretending to be physically impaired? For what purpose? It might be a good idea to take a video as evidence. Ms. Johnson's calm voice echoed in my head. Evidence? What kind of evidence? I'll explain later. As directed by Ms. Johnson, I pulled out my cell phone in a daze and recorded a video of the in-laws. I was utterly stunned. I had no idea what was happening. Ms. Johnson explained that at first she suggested a barrier-free home because the in-laws seemed to have bad legs. This property is equipped with a ramp, which might make moving around easier. However, Patricia laughed it off. We don't need anything like that. Saying this, Patricia and the others walked away. Ms. Johnson didn't understand why they pretended to have bad legs. The mystery was soon solved. When handing over the mortgage documents to the eager-to-buy in-laws, it seemed the contract was progressing under my name. Here are the documents you filled out. Looking at the documents she handed over, my name was indeed written on them. Eavesdropping on their conversation, Ms. Johnson heard a horrifying discussion. Having Melissa pay for the loan is best. We've received quite a bit from the insurance company by pretending my back and Paul's leg were bad, but we've spent a lot on new appliances recently. Mom, that's too direct. But that's what we've been saying for years, right? Find someone wealthy. Patricia said this matter-of-factly, with Paul seemingly agreeing. Eric kept his promise. Melissa completely trusts us. Rich people who don't suspect others are easy to manipulate. Realizing the truth left me dumbfounded. The in-laws pretended to have mobility issues to defraud the insurance. And Eric was aware of it. Hearing about the exchange from Ms. Johnson left me speechless. They expected me to pay for the mortgage? Unbelievable. Indeed, my family owns some land, and I had mentioned to Eric early on that we were landowners. But our lifestyle is very modest. I've always been taught by my parents not to waste money, and I don't own any luxury items. I'm just an ordinary office worker with no high salary. I never imagined Eric approached me with the motive of targeting the fact that I'm a landowner for money. I was so shocked I couldn't say anything, to which Ms. Johnson apologized. I'm sorry for bringing this up so suddenly. No, please don't worry, Ms. Johnson. I'm actually glad you told me. I managed to say, forcing the words out, and Ms. Johnson's face fell. There's more to the story. Then, Ms. Johnson revealed something shocking. Eric had said, "We'll need Melissa's cooperation going forward," said. And Patricia had suggested, "Yes, next time, give Melissa a little push. Say she fell and claim treatment costs indefinitely. Teach her that, and she'll be delighted to join us, getting money just for a bit of pain." She said this with a malicious smile. I felt terrified. They were planning to involve me in fraud. What is that? A little push means they're fully intent on injuring me. And they want me involved in their deceit? Impossible. I know this is a difficult conversation. Maybe it was unnecessary, but I felt I had to tell you. This is a serious crime, and I feared for your safety. Ms. Johnson spoke hesitantly, her words echoing deep within me. It was hard to believe, and I didn't want to. But I had seen it with my own eyes. The in-laws walking normally. My name on the mortgage documents. And Eric, who had been deceiving me. Dizzy with the magnitude of what had happened, I stumbled. Are you all right? Ms. Johnson caught me as I nearly fell. Right, I need to be strong. The person in charge had courageously informed me. I needed to take action. Thank you. I'm okay. It's a shock, but I don't want to be involved in fraud, and now that I know the truth, I can't let the in-laws continue like this, I said firmly. Ms. Johnson nodded with conviction, understanding my resolve. There was no time to waste. Ms. Johnson and I quickly discussed what to do next. Then, I rushed out through another door. The in-laws were kept busy by Ms. Johnson. I texted Eric that I was feeling unwell and would go home first. Taking this opportunity, I decided to gather evidence at home. I remembered seeing some records about the in-laws' accident. Using the internet, I searched for the date and details of the accident, relying on my memory to find the insurance company and doctors' names. Once prepared, I immediately reported to the insurance company. When I mentioned it was a case of fraudulent claims, they directed me to a specialized department where I shared the details. Of course, I also sent the video I took today via text. Subsequently, the insurance company filed criminal charges, and the in-laws were arrested. I later found out that while the accident and injuries were real, they weren't severe. Despite this, they continued to pretend their conditions were serious to swindle money. And they had been defrauding money. However, with traffic accidents, insurance companies are usually on high alert for false claims. I wondered how they managed to deceive the investigations, but the mystery was solved. They had conspired with a relative who was a doctor to forge medical certificates. Despite only having minor injuries, they pretended they were severe. Such an unbelievable story. Of course, the doctor was arrested too. This doctor, who had engaged in similar frauds apart from my in-laws, was already marked by the insurance company. That's why they were able to arrest him so quickly. In the end, they were just a greedy family. Not just stingy, but outright criminals. Eric, who had turned a blind eye, was no different. I told everything and expressed my desire for a divorce. However, Eric wouldn't accept it and resisted. "Meet with Mom at least. It's all a misunderstanding," Eric said. I couldn't understand what was misunderstood. I didn't want to see them, but I had things I wanted to say too. Eric and I went to the prison where the in-laws were. Due to the severity of their crimes, they didn't get probation. Upon entering the visitation room, Patricia looked completely defeated. Through the acrylic panel, I glared at Patricia. "Patricia, I heard you've been committing fraud and even planned to involve me? Why did you do such things?" Patricia spoke in a feeble voice. "Such things. The accident was real, and we did have leg problems. But once we got better, if we could still get paid as medical expenses, why not take it?" Was she unaware that she committed a crime? Astonished, I spoke clearly. "What are you saying? That's a crime. And to think you planned to involve me in your deceit, you're insane." Then Eric intervened. "That's how easy money comes, Melissa. We just messed up this time. You must understand, living off your family's money." Eric's flippant attitude made my anger explode. "Don't lump me in with you. My parents and I work hard. I would never earn money by committing crimes. You're the lowest of the low. I want nothing to do with you ever again." After my outburst, Eric and Patricia were stunned by my stern attitude. Patricia and Eric were more terrible than I had imagined. Having finally shown their true colors, they only thought about living easily and extracting money from others. Even after arrest, they hadn't woken up to their actions. Realizing the conversation was futile, I left Eric at the prison. I wouldn't come back here again. Later, I filed for divorce. It took time, but the divorce was finalized. Eric, notorious in his company for his parents' arrest, resigned due to the discomfort. His whereabouts afterward are unknown. Presumably, he lives modestly with the released in-laws. Never had I imagined such despicable people existed. I had enough of marriage for a while. Deciding to focus on my career, I found a new job. Then, unexpectedly, I met someone. I met a kind man, Scott, who accepted everything about me. Scott understood and healed me when I was hurt and had gone through tough times. However, I was hesitant about moving to the next stage. I trusted him because he was a really good person, but I had become cautious due to the lessons from my previous marriage. To dispel my anxieties, Scott introduced me to his parents. They welcomed me and entertained me with a proper meal. I was moved by such a normal act. His parents were also of a gentle nature and very open-hearted, just like Scott. With this family, I felt safe. Thinking so, I married Scott. Finally, I was able to have the peaceful life I had always wanted. As time went by, the conversation about buying a house with Scott came up. I mentioned that there was a real estate agency I wanted to go to and took Scott there. It was Ms. Johnson's real estate agency. Thanks to Ms. Johnson, who handled our case, we were able to realize we had been deceived. I couldn't be more grateful for that. Upon entering the real estate agency, a familiar face caught my eye. "Welcome." Ms. Johnson seemed to have recognized me. I greeted her with a smile. Hello. It's been a while. It seems Ms. Johnson is doing well. The new business card she gave me had Chief written on it. Seeing that she had grown and accumulated experience made me feel happy. Ms. Johnson, taking a moment when Scott was away, smiled and said, "It's great that you found a good person." Smiled and said, "Thanks to you telling me the truth that time, Ms. Johnson." "Thank you." I smiled back, influenced by her warmth. Thinking of what I could do for Ms. Johnson as a token of gratitude, I decided, let's buy a house here. This time, it will surely be a wonderful home. Thinking of my new home made me naturally smile.